President Trump has dismissed congressional approval to extend his war on Iran, blowing past Friday's 60-day deadline created under the 1973 War Powers Resolution. In a letter to congressional leaders, he argued that hostilities with Iran, quote, have terminated because of the ceasefire that began in early April. Despite the pause in 2 months of fighting, the U.S. and Iran remain locked in a stalemate, as you know. Iran presented a new proposal for talks to bring an end to the war. President Trump said he's, quote, not satisfied with what Iran is offering. Last night in Florida, he said the United States could be better off if officials don't reach a deal with Iran.
Frankly, maybe we're better off not making a deal at all. Do you want to know the truth? Because we can't let this thing go on. Going on too long.
Too long. We're joined now by Alex Ward, national security reporter for the Wall Street Journal. Alex, thank you so much for joining us. I want to start with some more from this letter. Quote, there has been no exchange of fire between United States forces and Iran since April 7th, 2026. The hostilities that began on February 28th, 2026 have terminated. However, he said this yesterday also at the Villages. Listen to this.
You know, we're in a war because I think you would agree we cannot let lunatics have a nuclear weapon. Do you agree?
Say what now? So in the letter, it's terminated. In speechifying Trump, we're in a war. Help me square those things.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can be squared. I mean, the War Powers Resolution, the War Powers Act doesn't let you hit a clock like a chess game, right, where you can sort of pause the war. There's also a reason why President John F. Kennedy called it a quarantine of Cuba, not a blockade of Cuba, because a blockade is an act of war. But this is a blockade in Iran, therefore it is an act of war. Now, we should note, and the president is right about this, no president has cared about the War Powers Resolution, War Powers Act. Every president has just kind of decided, I get to do what I want. And with this Congress, and really Congresses of many years past, they're not going to do anything. Why shouldn't he make this move? Because for him, he gets to sort of sidestep the war and reset the clock, at least narratively, for if hostilities were to start again. So it's not a circle that one can square, but politically it makes a lot of sense. And this phase, sort of avoid more congressional talking points of backlash about that, and then maybe reset the clock if he wants to keep going.
Yeah. The president said hostilities have terminated. And yet I'm wondering, well, one, I don't, whatever he says, but I just wonder, does that assertion apply to Israel? So let's just take the president at his word. The United States, the hostilities from the United States have terminated. But is that going to stop Israel from sending bombs, missiles, jets into Iranian territory?
I mean, this law does not cover Israel, right? So Israel can do what it wants. Now, the president had been saying he doesn't want war anymore. This is over. The blockade is enough. And Israel's unlikely to make a move without Trump giving some sort of green light. So is that conversation happening between President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu? I don't know. But one could imagine that if Netanyahu were to make the case to go to war again with Iran, he would have to be calling President Trump and getting some sort of approval.
He's been making that case for years. But go on.
I'm just actually now asking this out loud. I'm not expecting you to answer this question, but isn't mounting a blockade engaging in war?
Yeah, that was the point I was making, right? There's a reason Kennedy called it a quarantine, because a quarantine wasn't an act of war, but a blockade certainly is by any legal definition. So we're still at war with Iran because the blockade is going, but the president is, I guess, making the case that somehow you can either hit a pause button or that only bombs or bombing counts as war. But that is not the case.
Well, I want to keep reading some of the tea leaves here, because we had some reporting this week that I'm pretty sure you guys had as well, which is that Iran is set to deliver another proposal, and we could reach a longer-term deal by the end of the week, which we're currently in. But then you also have someone like Senator Richard Blumenthal, who said that according to some of the briefings he received this week, an imminent military strike is still on the table and could be happening shortly. Let's watch him talk about that.
I do have the impression from some of the briefings that I have received, as well as other sources, that an imminent military strike is very much on the table, which is deeply disturbing because it could well involve American sons and daughters in harm's way and potential massive casualties. I can't be more specific because I received at least one of these briefings, several of them in classified settings, but I'm not saying with any certainty as to when it would happen, but very much on the table as a potential plan.
Okay, so he's not sure when this could happen, but you are obviously a student of the disorganized chaos of Trump's Pentagon. When you are looking back at major Friday nights, Saturday nights that we've all had together, sometimes with you, from Venezuela to Iran to even last Saturday night, obviously not an act of war, very different. But anyways, what are the different tea leaves that you're reading and sort of signs that you are looking for that something big is about to happen?
Last summer, after a couple of weeks of negotiations trying to get Iran to give up its nuclear weapons, President Trump got impatient and tired of those negotiations and ordered a bombing of Iran, leading to the bombing of 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Earlier this year, President Trump was engaged in a nuclear negotiation with Iran, trying to get Iran to give up its nuclear program, nuclear work. He got impatient. He decided it wasn't good enough and started the war we're currently in. Now, the President Trump is in another nuclear negotiation with Iran. It's been a couple of weeks. He feels like it's not going well, and then he starts saying maybe we don't need a deal. So, I mean,
see you tomorrow morning.
Despite last week saying that there was an indefinite timeline to hatching some sort of deal, and that the ceasefire, there were no conditions to the ceasefire anymore.
Well, no, I mean, on this, I don't feel like there's some sort of discord. I mean, there is an indefinite blockade in the sense where the president goes, I want this blockade on because I think it's going to give me the best chance to get Iran to capitulate. Now, it's been about a week, and he goes, well, this blockade ain't working the way I want, so I might go ahead and choose something else. I mean, I don't know if you've watched the movie Knocked Up as studiously as I have, but there's a scene in there where Seth Rogen is dancing with Katherine Heigl, and he's doing this dice move on the dance floor, and his friends go, he keeps repeating it, and they go, but that's the only move he's got. This is President Trump's move.
That was good.
This is President Trump's move. When he tries to do some sort of deal, it doesn't work. He doesn't like the long-term, how long it takes. And then he literally said basically yesterday, it's either a deal or war. So if no deal, he's only got one move.
Alex, we got to go, but I just want to ask you about Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska, who has given the administration until May 11th to present to Congress or to her a credible plan for Iran. Otherwise, she's going to introduce an authorization for the use of military force. How likely is it that the Trump administration, the president, will even care?
Zero. I mean, this is the thing. Like, Congress has just not been doing much. This is a fine attempt, but even if it's passed, which I doubt, I don't think President Trump would care.
I mean, it is significant that it's a Republican and she's got 3 other Republicans behind her. But as you said, he don't care.
It's
Alex Ward.
Not enough Republicans.
Alex Ward, Wall Street Journal. Thank you very much, as always.